Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my Rotten Tomatoes Got It Wrong series throughout the decade of the 2010s. So here we are at the end of another decade. And so it's time to have a retrospective and look back at all of the films over the past 10 years. But to do so, here on my channel, we're going to take a look at Rotten Tomatoes and how they scored films from every single year of the 2010s, starting today with 2010 itself, the year that kicked us off. And appropriately, I'm going to kick this series off with Rachel Wagner, who I initiated this series with on a semi-annual basis as we got together to talk about the over and underrated films over the past couple of years together. So what does this all mean? So throughout the series, for every single year, I will have a guest come on and give their opinions on films that were ranked fresh that should have been rotten, and films that critics made rotten that we think should have been fresh. I'll also be giving my input and giving you my 5 films from each year that Rotten Tomatoes got wrong. Of course, we look forward to you all sharing your opinions on what films were over and underrated from every single year. So without further ado, I'm going to let Rachel Wagner take things away and kick off the series by giving us her opinions on what movies the tomato meter got wrong for 2010.
Hi, everybody. So I'm really grateful to be on Larry's channel. It's always such a treat to get to work with him. We are pretty good friends. We've gotten to know each other pretty well over the last couple of years. And so he asked me to come on and talk about the year 2010 and movies that I felt like were too low or too high on the tomato meter. Of course, now I'm on Rotten Tomatoes, which is so surreal. I'll never get over that. So maybe I can help improve some of these ones that I think are a little low. And so I have 2 that I think are too high, and I have 3 that I think are too low. So let's get started. It'll be really fun. All right, we're gonna get one of my controversial picks out of the way that I think is too high. Don't be too mad at me, but I think that Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1 is too high at 77%. I do not think they should have divided this book into 2 movies. I don't think that ever works. That's my opinion. A lot of people think this is the one that did work. That is not my opinion. I think that this movie is a slog. It has basically lots of 2 things that I don't like. It has lots of camping out, and that wasn't interesting to me, all those scenes in that wood, and it gets really weird. And then it has the other thing I don't like is lots of teenage angst, which is not my thing. And so all of this sort of this love triangle that all of a sudden develops, and you have this weird fantasy that Ron has with Harry and Hermione making out and being naked, like that came out of nowhere for me. And I feel like it was Harry Potter's try to be Twilight, and it just was not interesting to me, and I felt like they saved all the good stuff for the second movie. Sorry. There you go. That's my thoughts on Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1. The second one I have for one I think is underrated is Morning Glory. Everybody knows I am a big fan of romantic comedies, and I really think Rachel McAdams is charming in this. I think that Harrison Ford is perfectly cast as kind of this grumpy news reporter, this anchor person for the morning show. Diane Keaton is charming in it, kind of has something to say without being too much. I just think it's a really enjoyable little movie. And so it's at 55%. I think that's too low. I think it executes what it's trying to do really well, and it's a fun little movie. Then my other movie that I think is too high, and this is very controversial, but I think The Social Network is too high at 96%. I wouldn't say I'd put it as rotten, but I think the characters are actually really one note, and this is a problem that I often have with Aaron Sorkin's scripts. I find that Mark Zuckerberg is painted as a sort of evil rich guy without any nuance or kind of flavor to who he is and what makes him run. I feel like it's just, oh, he's selfish. And it doesn't get a lot beyond that. Granted, I haven't seen this movie in a long time, and I did not have time to rewatch it this week. But I don't know. It is very well made. It's very stylish. The performances are good. So I don't think I would go rotten, but I do not think it's the masterpiece that other people do. So just because I don't think the characters are very interesting to me. Then one that I think is too low is the movie Just Right at 45%. I think this is a really solid romantic comedy. Queen Latifah is charming in it as this physical therapist who gets assigned to help this basketball player get rehabilitated. He's played by Common, and even though he's kind of short, he makes it work, and they do the basketball scenes in a convincing way, and they get some of the professional players involved in some performances, and I just think it's really charming and romantic, and Paula Patton is her cousin, and she's good. I don't know. I really enjoy it. So there you go. And then the last one that I think is too low is Step Up 3 at 47%. This movie is a showcase of dancing. I mean, the dance performances are just magnetic and energetic. And I mean, I didn't ever get to see it in the 3D, but I think it would be really cool to see in the 3D. I actually like Step Up 2 a little bit better, but I think that this movie has so much energy. And yeah, maybe the acting isn't the greatest, but I think it's serviceable. And, it's all about the dancing, and it executes that really, really well. And I don't think it overstays its welcome to me. So I don't know. I just think it's a really entertaining dance movie, and I like dance movies. So I think it's too low at 47%. So that is my thoughts on movies from 2010 that I think are too high or too low. So let me know what you thought. And thanks so much, Larry, for letting me be on your channel. Make sure you're following me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and also I'm at the Hallmarkies podcast. So Merry Christmas and thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you so much for participating, Rachel. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad you were on board to help me usher in a new series based on the idea that we came up with together. Everyone, make sure that you subscribe to Rachel at Rachel's Reviews, as well as the Hallmarkies podcast, all of that fun jazz. She's on Twitter, she's on Instagram, and of course, she's here on YouTube as well as everywhere you can listen to podcasts. So make sure you head over to iTunes and look up the Hallmarkies podcast. All right, now for my picks for the most over and underrated movies of 2010. We're going to start off with the most controversial, probably, of the bunch, and I'm going to say it. Social Network was overrated. The Social Network had a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, went on to be nominated in the front runner for the Academy Awards, though it did not end up taking home the big award. But it swept up with all of these awards, all of this praise, and I was left there just not really getting it. Yes, of course, we have that snappy dialogue, which you always come to expect from a Sorkin film. But as we've seen, Jesse Eisenberg was really well cast, I guess, for the role. But he really didn't do much. Andrew Garfield was wonderful, as we'd all love. And this kind of introduced us on a larger scale to Armie Hammer. So that's a great positive. But overall, I just didn't connect with any of the characters. I didn't connect with the story itself. And it just didn't really interest me all that much. So I don't know that I would have gone all the way rotten when it comes to The Social Network. But a 96? Oof. At best, this would be at like a 70%. Tops for me. Yeah. Next up, my next overrated film of 2010 is Iron Man 2. So we don't have any rotten movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this actually isn't even the lowest ranked of the MCU films, sitting at 73%. Well, I think this is actually a pretty jumbled mess, and I'm shocked that it didn't get into the 50s, if I'm being honest. This and Thor the Dark World, I really think it should be rotten, honestly. If there's any Marvel film that should have gotten that treatment, it's right here with Iron Man 2. The film is just a jumbled mess with these different plot points. You could feel them just trying their best to put together future films. And you don't want to see those scenes when you're watching an Iron Man movie. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. is great. Scarlett Johansson, introduced as Black Widow, was wonderful. But the movie just felt like a mishmash mess. And yeah, I definitely would have made it rotten. Moving on to movies I think were judged a little bit too harshly, we're going to kick this off with The Book of Eli. The Denzel Washington film currently sits at 47% on the tomato meter, and I actually don't think it deserves that. I wouldn't give it a 96, I wouldn't give it that rating, but I definitely think it deserves to be in the 60%. It is contemplative, it's beautiful to look at. Denzel Washington is great in the role, but while it doesn't completely nail what it's trying to say, and we at this point have seen plenty of post apocalyptic films, I think it was still lofty enough. It still aimed for a big enough picture with solid performances and good filmmaking that I think it's hated on a bit too much. Next up, I think critics were a bit harsh on Tron Legacy, which currently sits at a 51% on the tomato meter. First of all, visually this movie is stunning, and that score from Daft Punk, top notch, exactly what I wanted. I found the story to be interesting. It felt like a good reinvention, reboot slash sequel of the 80s Tron film, but with some new flavor. It felt right for the time. I thought the concepts were interesting enough. The action was fun. The visuals were beautiful. It does drag on. There's definitely some stuff that falls flat here, but I'd say it's one of the better live action Disney films of the decade and deserved a fresh rating. And then my final pick is Love and Other Drugs, which currently sits at a 48% on the tomato meter, which is a little bit alarming to me because I think it's actually a pretty solid movie. Is it a bit melodramatic? Sure. But we have this great chemistry at the core of this movie between Anne Hathaway and Jake Gyllenhaal, who are both giving amazing performances. We get that Gyllenhaal booty on full display in this film, which automatically bumps it up a couple of percentage points. But we also get some good Anne Hathaway shots as well. But more importantly, Hathaway particularly gives an amazing performance. I think it was a really interesting concept, which really dealt with the struggles of finding love or being in love with a terminally ill disease in the mix. A disease that cannot be cured, or an illness, period, honestly. And I thought it handled it all very well. I really enjoy Love and Other Drugs. I periodically go back to watch it, and I think it is way better than a 48%. Emotionally impactful, thoughtful, and a little bit sexy. Sounds good to me. So those are my picks for the movies that Rotten Tomatoes got wrong in 2010, as well as Rachel's picks. Let us know, what do you think of the movies we picked? Do you agree that the tomato meter wasn't quite on point with these ones? And what other films would you say the scores just don't quite hit it for when it comes to 2010? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit both Rachel and I up on Twitter. Again, make sure you check out Rachel's reviews here on YouTube, as well as on Instagram and Twitter, and definitely make sure you look up HALLMARKIES podcast as well. And while you're here, if you did enjoy this video, hit like down below and subscribe to the channel so you are up to date every week as I unveil the latest video in this series, as well as all of my latest content. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!